Hey everyone, and welcome back to my Blacadian universe. So I um, was fortunate enough to get together with my girlfriend, and of course, we were talking about everything that's going on in the world today, and it's a lot. And one of the things that really stood out in my mind as we were, as we are, as Black people do, we always are cracking jokes to stop from crying. And I was telling her about, I was watching this video like on YouTube, and it was by Vidura Raja Pasca. Forgive my pronunciation, but he's from Sri Lanka, and he's like a comedian, he's excellent. And so he was doing like a sort of a stand-up routine, and he was talking about a term that he took issue with, and it was around people of color. And as soon as I got the words out, my girlfriend Nadine, she was like laughing because she knows what this is happening. Why I wanted to bring it up and get her thoughts on it. So let's talk about it. So many years ago, one of my colleagues that I was working with, she was like an older Black woman. And, we were, of course, like, I talked about working in a predominantly white space. And, we were the only two Black people in the room. And, someone was like saying, like, oh, like African American. And so she was from the Caribbean, similar to myself. And so she was just like, yeah, I'm not African American. It's just like, I don't understand, like, what this is about, like these terms. And she's like, I'm Black. You can just say Black, okay? And she's like, say Black, Black, Black. And I think she said, like, I'm just crying because I was hard. It was hard to keep it together in that room because like everyone was shocked. Like it seemed like she said like the N word when she said Black, and they were like, "Oh, I don't think you can say that." And yeah, she was just like, "I'm Black. Say Black. Call me Black." And I think she said it like 7 times, and I was like, I think I literally had tears in my eyes, just trying to bite the corners of my cheeks because I wanted to burst out laughing. Um, but what she said in that room really stayed with me because I think what's happening is, and it's a process. Decolonizing our language is so important. I think one of the first episodes I've ever done of this podcast was talking about how language matters because how we record our history, how we talk about our past. We know right now what's happening in the world. People are trying to erase that history, rewrite that history because it matters. It is powerful how we remember ourselves, our country's misdeeds, our past. All of those things matter, and we can't grow and change from it and not repeat it, as that, famous saying goes, if we're not very, very aware of the truth. And so when we talk about things like African American and all of these things, it's, the idea behind it is excellent because it matters how we refer to Black people in this space. And so even like at right now, Black is considered to be the most suitable and appropriate, including all of the various dimensions of Black identities or of Black peoples. But that may change in the future, and that's okay because, as we work through this process of decolonizing ourselves and our language, we might find that we want to shift away from this and, sort of go in a different language terminology. So it's always going to be evolving and changing as we learn and grow and know how to do better. And that's absolutely okay. That's one of the things that people have to get comfortable with as we're going through this process of moving away from, white supremacy and decolonizing our language and self. So, um, one, so, that's part of the game. So one of the things is that I've always felt uncomfortable. I like Black, and I'll tell you why, because it's equivalent to white. So when you say white, I don't need, like, no one's like saying, oh, Caucasian. Nobody wants to be referred as Caucasian because it implies race. So I've always had an issue with Caucasian and, so I prefer black because it's the equivalent to white. If you're going to assign colors to people, then assign the colors. You're white, black, you know, I, I I feel like, there's a lot of stigma around it. And as a black person, I can just say that that's just my preference. But again, some people might prefer African American because, it acknowledges that they were stolen from Africa. It's just, everyone I feel can have that choice. Um, so when it comes to people of color, and Vidura, he excellently points it out, is that um, it centers whiteness, and so that is exactly what we should be shifting away from when we look at when we look at these terminologies. It shouldn't be about just another way of othering people. It should be about welcoming all people back together as we are one human race. So whenever you're thinking of these terms of what to refer to somebody as, of course it should be based on their preference, but, we should also be thinking about why how that, the origins, I guess, because the original origins are steeped in a very terrible history. And what we should be looking is to sort of shift away from that. And so people of color, it's just like, saying for me, I always thought of. And so, my friend and I, Nadine, are saying it's basically like saying colored. And so this was, back in I don't even know what era, like, people were shifting away from, trying to find a polite way of referring to Black people, and the term colored came up. And so again, it's just that othering language. So the standard is white, and then the deviation from that is like colored people. So it's still like creating a tier or a class of otherness for people that are outside of this mainstream, considered mainstream identity of white. And so people of color is sort of just like, I get where it is. It's sort of, throwing in that word people. Remember, they're people. We are people. So I like, that I feel like there was some thought in that. But again, he Vidura makes the point that if we said, if we centered, all of the people that are not white, and we just said, let's flip that thinking. Because again, the people that are probably coming up with these terms are people that are not people of color. They're probably white people. And so the idea, my episode last week about decentering whiteness in all of these conversations, and this culture of entitlement is sort of like the crux of white supremacy. And so again, this language of white people coming up for names for people that are not white maybe is not the best idea. And so, have some consultations and collaborations. And when he said he's going to, perhaps recommend the term people without color as the going term, so that sort of equates things, so we can say people of color and people without color. How does that sit in your mouth? I was, and so we loved it. We loved it. And I was like, out of all the iterations over the years of all of the terms that have been referred to, for people of color, BIPOC, African American, all of these things, I thought people with color and people without color is probably, it should be like the new term, because it just, it speaks to the equality. And he was saying it in complete jest, but I thought this was brilliant because it is. I think, good comedians are often, I say it all the time, incredibly intelligent. And I thought, what a wonderful way of encapsulating this complex topic of, white supremacy, decentering whiteness, decolonization of our languages and our society by just saying people without color. And, it's perfection. It's absolute perfection. And so my girlfriend and I were saying, do you know how many people would be outraged to be referred to that way? The way that it's considered polite and liberal for us. She said, I know very many white people who consider themselves, very anti-racist, would not find that, remotely funny, and would also be offended that if we were to, seriously consider it and refer to them as a person without color, just in that way. And I was like, exactly, because it speaks to the fact that they are not centered. And so that's where we landed on that. It's just the fact that they are not the standard. They are not the identity that we are comparing ourselves to. We are just people all together, some with color, some without color. That's powerful. That's transformative. That is where we should be going. And the fact that it is a revolutionary thought, a revolutionary idea that is, well, first of all, dreamed up in the mind of someone as a person with color. But the fact that nobody ever is getting there just shows how much work and growth we still need to do in this space of decolonizing our language and decentering white as the standard identity. And I honestly, from now on, this is going to be in my, terminology. It is now people with color and people without color because we're evening the playing fields here. This is 2025. We're equal. We always were, always will be people without color. Use it. Use it and see how it's received. And let me know. Let me know because I'm going to be using it every opportunity I get. Trust me. And yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think it's an evolution. And yeah, people without color. Proud to be a person with color. And all of my people without color allies. Let's make this a thing. Let's make this a thing. So I will leave it there. As always, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time.